Do you ever find yourself overwhelmed by emotion?
Yes. Yes, that does happen.
Lydia Tarr, the character, and obviously Tarr, the film, what is so incredible about it, as a huge classical musical fan that I am, you open with her CV, and instantly, if you're me, you're like, this is a superhero. You've just described Superman, the Superwoman. This is incredible. But the story is so real and I would say lived in and authentic and has very, I would say, present themes. And it exists in, I think, that fantastical but realistic way. And I know that was a balance that both you, Cate, and Todd set from the beginning. So how did you sort of create it that way within this, again, the choice of the Mahler, everything from your conducting coach, it's so real, but then in so many ways, it's fantastical.
Well, it is still a fairy tale in that there's not a female running a major German orchestra. So in that way, we can take there's a lot of poetic license to talk about, to Trojan horse a lot of really big questions, I think, that we were both been thinking about. But it's interesting you talk about that CV, because the genius of what Todd wrote is that you have the CV and you're thinking, wow, my Lord. And then you see her assistant mouthing the CD, knowing that this whole thing is managed. So you realize that there is a kind of there's some form of a manipulation there from the get-go. So this is not going to be, you're not asked to look at this character through rose-colored glasses right from the very beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, Todd, I think you kind of set that up from the beginning, but I would have to say, I think there's a lot of films that don't hold up to classical scrutiny, and this film is absolutely one that does. And so I know that it has to come from craftsmanship and from stakeholders that helped you. So talk about how you created, even with Cate in mind, but how you created Lydia Tarr from whole scratch.
Well, I mean, there are two components. One is the character of Lydia Tarr, and the other one, of course, is a sort of milieu that you're talking about, the classical milieu, which in truth I didn't know a great deal about. So I had to do my homework. And Cate and I would both agree that probably neither one of us really wants to trot out our homework, because it's just the practical things that you have to do to do your job. But I'd be remiss in not calling out John Mauceri, who was sort of my teacher, gave me a course study in terms of a crash course, in terms of these are the things one ought to know, and these are the things you might want to pay attention to. And also being there as a great sounding board for me in terms of talking about turns in the script, and would this be plausible and under what sort of circumstances. In terms of the character, I'd always imagined this sort of this child, who came from sort of very particular circumstances that she wanted to escape, and that her sort of escape hatch was being introduced to this music through a very particular way, and so she ran towards that escape hatch, and she had dreams in the way that I think in many ways only someone that's so far away from where she finally winds up actually would allow themselves to dream. I don't think that many people that grow up with classical music as a part of their family lives or a part of the world that they live in would ever allow themselves to believe that Lydia Tarr, that they themselves could be at the top of an orchestra such as this. It would have to be somebody that was so far away from it that would allow themselves to actually believe they could get there. And the steps in which they take to get there are many. So you start out with a character that is so driven by salvation through art and salvation through creation, and they feel alive making noise. And they find themselves at turning 50. And now this small child is now a middle-aged person who has achieved so much that they're looking at their life in the rearview mirror, and they start making decisions based on the fact that they're looking at their life in the rearview mirror.
And it's interesting to see those decisions and how they sort of like play out within your character. I think for folks like myself who are huge fans of Leonard Bernstein, like this is such a great, I think, companion piece in so many ways. But what inspirations did you draw upon? Your advisors, the physical, I think, manifestations even of what you do with Tar in this are incredible. She literally holds herself like a conductor.
Well, that's great. There were many things I had to get to. I had to get granular really quickly with, obviously the conducting, and had to pick up the piano again, which I hadn't played since I was a girl, and all of these things just so that I could play the scenes. And so that the audience, because it's a rehearsal film, it's not a performance film, and so the way, and talking to conductors, in preparation and subsequent to making the movie, the way one conducts in rehearsal is entirely different to the way you actually, the show that you put on when you're in performance or when you're recording, for instance. And I started with, because the pandemic was on, so the chance to be face to face with people wasn't alive to me, wasn't possible. I started with Ilya Musin's masterclasses, went right back to the genius source. And I have a friend who fortunately had some time, who was a conductor, Natalie Murray-Beale, to then talk about, just the beating structure, the timekeeping and the kind of the emotional, psychological shaping that you got to get the phrasing and the color, and so all of that stuff. It's a bit like this, which I had to learn, but I did understand, and I was grateful to having spent many, many decades on stage. So I understood breath, to inspire, is, that's where the inspiration comes from. And so you have to breathe, and Bernstein, as you would know, says that, the inhalation is the inspiration and the out-breath is the music. So that I kind of understood. So there were some kind of basic principles that I felt I could transpose from being an actor on stage, and having a very strong relationship to audience. But, I think nothing could have prepared us all, but for me personally, standing on the podium in front of the Dresden Philharmonic, because once you give the downbeat and the music comes back at you, you could have listened to von Karajan and Gergiev and Simone Young and Nathalie Stutzman and Laurence Eclubet play all of these great works, and you think you understand the music, but you don't understand the music until it comes through you and back at you with an orchestra. And that was something that I will never, ever forget. It was profound.
Just got a bit of chill, so thank you for that very much. That was incredible. Todd, I will also say, in addition to the technical achievement of this film, the language that you put within it, like I said, I am not a master, but I think it's going to hold up to those scrutinies. But in choosing Cate, I know you said that she was really the only person that could play this role. Having seen it, I agree. But what about the character as you were crafting it made it essentially, and I would say from its inception, her role? And why did you know that she would be the one person that could really bring life to this, I think, very complicated character?
Well, Cate and I started, we met, Cate has different ideas about this. She claims we met years before, but I think
we met years ago in the Four Seasons Hotel, and I met you, and you were so disinterested in me, all right. And it's like, it was the most horrendous meeting. But then we met again 10 years later, and I ignored that meeting, which you said never happened, and then we were talking about working
we
together.
Never met. When she says we met 10 years ago. Joan Didion and I had been working on a script for about a year. And I asked Cate if she would meet to talk about it, and we did. We met here in New York.
I think we met in this hotel.
No, we met downtown at the Crosby.
See, we're never going to agree.
We had dinner. She had a lovely suit on. I remember, wide pinstripes, brown suit. And out of that conversation, that the film didn't happen, but what I was struck out of that conversation by was, aside from Cate's formidable career and her incredible skill as a performer, just the intelligence that she has, and the way that she looks at an idea. That conversation really echoed and resonated with me, and was desperate to collaborate with her after that. And I had been thinking for a long time, what would that be? And so when I started writing this, I've never written for an actor before, ever, because I think it's dangerous and potentially very limiting to the actor because it's based on other things you've seen them do or on the character themselves. So there's always this sort of gray masked person that I'm thinking about. I never can see them, but based on that meeting that we had together, it was clear that it was Cate, and I wanted to be able to collaborate with her because I wanted to be able to have some big conversations about some questions that the script was sort of begging to have. So she didn't know I was writing it for her, and I was really frightened to send it to her, because had she said no, I wouldn't have made the film. So lucky me,
Lucky us. Thank you for saying yes.
I'm worried. She's starting to disappear into herself.
You want to dance the mask, you must service the composer. You got to supplement yourself, your ego, and yes, your identity.
Nina, I'm going to start with you because it is a film that definitely, I think, examines how we lionize people and canonize people, and sometimes we can be complicit in that. And I'm just wondering, over the course of making it, did you ever, as an actor, sort of think that? Because it is something that I think we all can kind of wrestle with watching this movie in the current moment, about how we canonize people on their accomplishments, even if they're not sometimes the best people.
Well, I definitely thought about it, because that is also the relationship Sharon, my character, has with Lydia, because she truly, I believe, admires her as a musician, and really, and as a person, of course, she falls in love with her, but through that, really, I think that they are able to create this amazing music together, and she wants Lydia to be able to do that in the most free way possible, and for that she is willing to do a lot of groundwork for her, so that she has a calm entry point and can just do what she's best at. But also, of course, both characters are part of a system that you have to navigate in. And someone who is such an incredible light figure, of course, has a lot of power. And I was thinking a lot about who are the people around that character. Do you enhance certain actions? Do you, for your own good, who keeps the system up? Yeah. and that was so interesting for me to work on with Sharon. To see that it's because no one's really innocent, and in all of that, and that was fascinating to work on.
That's very true. There are no innocent parties in this one, and even Sophie with Olga, I would say, like, of anyone, she is definitely thrust into it, and you could even say that. But even in that, there's a certain level of everybody, I think, can be complicit around these actors. But in the same respect, I'll have to ask you, like, starting to do a movie like this, it's at your point in your career, I would imagine it's even more different, because it's essentially like you're like, oh God, don't be that at the end of it. How did you feel about these figures after you sort of made the film?
I mean, I think what I was really fascinated by was that, Olga sees it. You never really know quite where she stands. You don't quite know if she's just oblivious to this all, or if she's calculating and scheming. But I really think you see her push back, and she doesn't bend, and she knows that she's going to do it her own way, and she's not going to fall into this trap. And it was really, I guess, empowering to play a character who just sticks to her guns and just isn't going to be messed around, and kind of succeeds despite everything. But there's also this very playful side to Olga, which was just lovely to play, and it's nice to have these scenes that kind of break up the tension in the movie. Some of them didn't make it to cut as well, that were even more kind of young and careless, or she's entering adulthood So she's still very much on the boundary, and you see that a lot in the film, and that was quite fun as well. So yeah.
Yeah, her childlike approach to literally kind of every aspect of both composition, music, everything that she sort of does, just from the way that she sort of approaches it, is such in stark contrast to what Cate is doing. She's so stern and serious. And so you can see the literal attraction and the opposites. But for both of you, I am nervous because after you guys, I get to talk to Cate, and like I've done it a couple of times now. I've not gotten any better at it. But I'm just
you just have to remember that she's just a lovely person, you know.
I know.
She's just extremely talented, but she's just a lovely, warm, normal kind of person. I mean, she's amazing. She's a genius, but she is just a lovely person.
Yeah.
Oh no, she's always great. It's my side that sort of lets it down. But I would ask, what was it as far as working with her like? Because both as Cate Blanchett, the person acting in the scene, but then also as Lydia Tarr, the character, in every scene in the movie, everyone really has to turn their attention to her. She has to command a presence. And then as both actors and people, you have to portray that on screen. But I think obviously as people, you're probably feeling it in real life. So talk about that sort of dichotomy of living in that on set. And Nina, I'll start with you.
Well, for me, it's just incredibly inspiring to work with an actor like that, you know, because she, like you said, she is demanding. She takes the scene and her character to places that are surprising, that are daring. The choices she makes, they're bold and they're exciting and unexpected. And it is just such fun to work with that, you know, because that gives you the opportunity to react on such a strong statement that she does in every moment, you know. And I was very curious to see what she would do with Lydia and certain things, because Sharon is not part of the way the whole time. I thought, oh, that's an interesting choice. I don't quite understand, but I guess there is something happening before and after, and she has it all planned out and things. And it is so amazing to see now, when you watch the film, how fine she, with having all these different moments, how multifaceted her play is. It's just stunning, and it's so. She's got a certain control over it, and just enough, you know, that it's also free and she can react and flow with the partners also, you know. But she's in control of what she does, and that is it's just fascinating. It was a gift.
Yeah, and a gift to watch, literally a masterful to watch in every way, shape, or form. And then Sophie, again, this is your first film, which I had in no way, I found that out reading the press notes, and I literally read it twice because I couldn't believe that information. But I love that you're now able to be like giving me my courage, like she's fine, but come on, girl, that first day walking on set, you can't pretend.
No. I'll be truly honest with you. The first time I met her, we were doing a rehearsal, like with the person who taught her to conduct, Natalie Marie Beale. And I remember it was like 2 floors. So I heard her come in downstairs and I heard her voice. And I was just like, I am hallucinating. Because, you know, I've grown up seeing her on my TV screen my whole life and being like a huge admirer of her work. And I remember she was like, hi, I'm Cate Blanchett. Nice to meet you. I'm like,
I know.
Hi. I think I didn't really speak very much for the first 5 minutes because I just didn't really kind of know how to act, and then I had to play for her as well, which was super scary. But I quickly learned that she is one of the, like I said, kindest, warmest, most encouraging people I have met. And she really helped me a lot when we were filming and was always coming with suggestions, and she was so supportive and encouraging. And like Olga and Lydia, or I guess Lydia sees Olga, or she sees her younger self in Olga, and she kind of, Olga becomes somewhat of a muse for Tar's creative energy. And so to have that kind of, and of course, Olga looks up to her as the amazing conductor that she is. So it was amazing to be able to learn from Cate, and then to be able to pass on a little bit of musical knowledge as well. you know, the kind of two-sided way, or yeah, I don't know how to say, but I learned a lot from her, and I felt very honored that I was like allowed to pass on a little bit of knowledge as well. But I just felt so lucky to work with this amazing cast and director and crew, and I just had an amazing time, really.